So my name is Juha. I'm an immigrant entrepreneur originally from Finland. I'm the founder of a company called Usko, and we're based in Miami, Florida. What we do is we help folks analyze, manage, and monetize their personal data. I'm super excited to be here today, and thank you, Autumn, Adam, and the team here for having me. Really excited. So there's three main things I'm going to talk about today. The first is I want to share a bit about myself and what I've learned reinventing myself career-wise 3 times and counting. How many of you in the audience are new to technology or looking to launch a career, maybe looking to pivot your career? Do we have anybody in that boat? Nobody? Everybody is? Oh, we got a few. Okay, good. Awesome, awesome. So hopefully you'll get a few tidbits, because I've done that 3 times and counting. And it's okay. I'm not judging by age. You could look to pivot at any age, which is really important. Second, I want to talk a little bit about how Miami went from an unknown tech ecosystem to one of the fastest growing tech hubs in the world. Through my previous company, WinCode, which is a coding educator, we got to play a part in that. And there are things that we experienced that I think can support what you are all doing here in Western Maryland. And third, I'll talk about data, privacy, and where things are going with the Web3 transition. But before we begin, I'd like to tee up a quick video to hopefully wake all of you up a little bit. So you might be wondering why I'm showing an old racing video and how that relates to data. Well, it's all part of my story. That clip was actually of my dad. He was a world champion rally driver in the 1980s, and that's from Rally Finland, which he won a record 7 times. So my dad's journey instilled in me that if you're lucky enough to do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. It also left me with huge shoes to fill and a burning desire to make something of myself. For me, it was about discovering my love of building, connection, and community that made me entrepreneurial to the core. And that entrepreneurial journey has led me to data. Like those rally roads in the video, it was anything but a straight path for me. So I wasn't always an entrepreneur, but I have always been entrepreneurial. My first memory of entrepreneurship actually goes back to high school in Finland, where I'm from. My grandparents would visit Florida in the winters. Yes, even Finnish grandparents winter in Florida, apparently. And when I'd be there, I would buy Matchbox and Hot Wheels cars. And what I would do is I would bring those back home to Finland and sell them to kids in my class, because we didn't have all the latest models or the latest toys. Pretty soon I was filling order books with requests and a full suitcase of Matchbox cars when I'd come back home. When I moved to Toronto in Canada for college, I knew I wanted to build my own company. I really started from the bottom. It was a company called Floorball Pro while I was still in school. I decided to introduce a brand new sport called floorball to North America from the ground up. Think of this as advanced floor hockey with really cool carbon fiber sticks, pro leagues in Europe. It's actually Olympic recognized, but nobody played this game in North America, not one person. My first warehouse was my condo. My girlfriend didn't like me. My first customers were my friends in college who I forced to play in the club that I started. They also didn't like me, especially because the only gym we could get was Saturday mornings at 7. That's not a good time for college kids. But we still got the sport going that way. And in the meantime, I was working a full-time job selling recipe booklets just to make ends meet. I traveled to thousands of schools in a minivan, teaching the game to kids and teachers, and eventually getting enough traction to get a real warehouse, build tournaments with thousands of players, sign on hundreds of retailers that sold the equipment, and partner with some of the biggest hockey organizations out there, including USA Hockey and Hockey Canada. We made branded products with them. But it was still a struggle, and some years I'd be lucky to clear $20,000 or $25,000 Canadian for myself after it was all said and done. I really loved what I was doing, but I knew I needed to pivot. I always loved technology, but I didn't think I had the skills to be in the tech world. Eventually, I told myself I had to try. The things that I loved the most about Floorball Pro was actually our e-commerce store, where we could sell products to anyone across North America and be able to build really cool solutions that other people weren't doing at the time. We were one of the first retailers to build a Shopify store and really do some cool stuff. I decided to scale back my responsibilities at Floorball Pro, and I did that by hiring an 18-year-old and training him to do my job. And the reason was he was the only person I could afford part-time to take over. And then that allowed me to attend a coding school in Toronto. I wanted to learn the skills tech companies were looking for, even if it meant not sleeping at all. I would study the entire day, and every break I would work on the floorball business until really late at night. And that's where the idea for WinCode came from. My wife and I decided to build a tech education coding company in Miami, where not much tech existed before our arrival. And again, we didn't know a single person in the city. We just decided to launch there for a number of factors. One, thinking we could help build a wave rather than join an existing wave for technology. Maybe you see some similarities to floorball already in terms of having zero market for what we were doing. And because we didn't know anyone in the city, it was a big challenge to launch. Yet we managed to launch the school in 3 months. We had some crazy twists and turns along the way, including almost getting shut down by the Florida Department of Education, which is a story I can't tell on camera. I'll tell you guys that during a break. And simultaneously, we're invited to the White House twice to talk about the success of the program. So it was crazy to be there and say at the White House, like, we're under investigation by the Florida Department of Education. And they're like, please don't say that. We have to strike that from the record. That cannot be publicly said. You will not be invited back. So anyway, we did navigate all of that, and we became the first licensed code school in the country that was licensed by Department of Education. At the end of the journey, we graduated almost 1,000 students who now work at companies like Google, Apple, Facebook, and a lot of every local tech company in the Southeast has hired from us at some point. And we sold the company last year to BrainStation, the global #2 in our space. And because we were supplying Miami Tech with talent, we really got to play a big role in growing the tech ecosystem, which I'll share with you a little bit later. Now I'm moving into data with Usko. We just raised $1.8 million pre-seed round, and we're building our product. It's another big pivot for me, and I'll tell you more about that product later on. So why did I tell you all this? You had a few people here who are looking to launch a new career. Maybe a few more are inspired now to be like, hey, I can pivot into something new. Since I've reinvented myself a few times, I wanted to share things I've learned along the way. The first is that success is not linear. The things that might look like quick success is usually the result of decades of hard work. You often don't see that side of what it takes. But it's nothing to be scared of. You just have to start. And the highs will more than make up for all of the lows along your journey, whether it's entrepreneurial or another journey career-wise. The other thing is bring your passion and energy with you. What do I mean by this? Well, this is about what gets you excited. What is going to separate you from the other people looking for that job or starting that company? For example, for me, it's a few things. It's a love of learning, of connecting with people, which is why I'm so excited to be here today, and solving new problems. The other thing that's really important is knowing that your past experiences will be relevant regardless of what you did. So I'll actually use a WinCode example for this. A lot of our students, actually probably 95% of our students, had no tech background before they came in. And they might have been a zookeeper, a train conductor, or a flight attendant for Delta Airlines. So you had to figure out, how do you make this past experience relevant? In the Delta Airlines example, once you learn coding skills, the woman in question was like, how am I going to use this to get a job in technology? And it turned out you have so many companies in that space that are looking to become more technology forward and reinvent themselves. Turned out she got a job back at Delta Airlines as a web developer, making 3 times as much money because her experience was so relevant. She was building software for people in the field, and she was one of those people before. So she really knew that problem and could help it. So it's about figuring out how you can connect those dots. And the last thing is being humble and hungry to learn. People will feel this and sense it. You can show it. And another WinCode example, and we just hired actually one of our graduates for Usko. We use a technology stack that is not the stack that they teach at BrainStation. This person, out of 7 interviews that we did, he was the one person who looked at our technology stack, downloaded that programming language, built an example application for us, even though it's really simple. That hustle showed us this is a person who's willing to learn and work hard. You can apply that to anything. Just show that extra initiative and excitement about what you're doing, and it's going to help you a lot as you move forward in your career. So ask yourself, why are you passionate about the things you're passionate about? Why do you get motivated to solve certain problems? For me, there's 2 common threads, equality and community. Through floorball, I was able to give people access to participate in a hockey-like sport who otherwise couldn't. Hockey is very expensive. It was very difficult for a lot of people to play. We were able to help with that. WinCode did the same for education. It was fast and inexpensive way to get a college-level education and get into computer programming. In both cases, I got to build communities firsthand, which is something I really, really love, and connect with like-minded people who helped and supported each other. And now I'm working to do that same thing with data, giving us as the users access to our data and an equal share of that monetization. So I think these are the most important things on this slide. Your past and current experiences reinforce and strengthen your attributes. The experience that you have is the what. The more important thing is your why. Why are you doing the things you do? And that's why people will want to work with you, hire you, and build with you. To succeed, it's all about bringing your passion, your energy, and a willingness to learn. That will always open doors, especially when you combine that with the required skill sets. So I want to switch gears a little bit, and I promised to talk to you about Miami. And we've gone through this crazy transformation. Has anybody read about what's been going on in Miami? I know it's been in the national news a little. Can I see a few hands? I see 1 here, 2. Okay, well, you know, okay. So we have this mayor. His name is Francis Suarez. He's turned into a Twitter celebrity. San Francisco is filled with billboards of his face saying, "How can I help?" to get people to move over to Miami. And it's all because of this moment that the city has gone through. And that's actually Mayor Suarez at the All In Podcast Summit, which is one of my favorite podcasts. If you haven't listened to it, check it out. But he's wearing our WinCode shirt, which is super cool. And what happened in Miami, I think, is very similar to what I feel happening here. We're maybe a little bit further along just in that path. And the good news that I want to share with everybody is that every region, every city will become a tech hub. That's a given. That's happening. The hard question is, how do you get there? And how can you get there maybe faster? Because I had the good fortune to live through this in Miami and play a part in it, I thought I'd share the things that I noticed that made a difference. So here's a quick list. The number one, and I think this event actually checks off this box in a big way, is finding organizations that really support technology and the infrastructure that's needed who are willing to play a long game. So in Miami, this was called the Knight Foundation. This group used to support the arts. It's a nonprofit. They decided to double down on technology. They helped support the first co-working space. They helped events like this one take part. There were conferences. You have angel investor groups. They even supported scholarships to WinCode so students could get the skills needed to help tech companies grow. The other thing that's really important is knowing what the local culture is and how you can make that work very well for technology. Miami is all about entrepreneurship and hustle. That's because there are not a lot of big companies. It's very hard to get a big company job. So people are used to creating their own jobs, whether it was a landscaping company or a car wash company, like whatever. This entrepreneurship kind of thread existed in the culture. It was just about realizing that that works really well for tech startups as well. It translated super well, actually. The other thing is having a tight-knit and supportive community. I've had a chance to talk to many of you here already, and I feel that in this room. I think it's really, really important to support each other as people are growing businesses, growing their careers, starting new things. The other thing I'd mention that's really important is to invest in each other. If somebody has a successful exit or builds a successful tech company here, the important thing is to have that person pay it forward and invest in new startups and people are starting. With Usko, what we're building, our entire fundraise is all South Florida people. Every single one. People have seen what happened with WinCode and we're like, we want to double down and help support. Also, I haven't made many angel investments, but the ones I've made are all in local entrepreneurs in South Florida. So I think that's really important to have a community that's going to help grow and support each other. I think you also need a great lifestyle. I think you have that here. Miami also has a different version of it. I think that's really important. And you want to focus on verticals that make sense for the region. In Miami, this was medical technology. We have a lot of, you guys know this, a big aging population. That was amazing for tech entrepreneurs looking to build companies like CareCloud, MD Live. Papa just reached $1 billion valuation, which essentially is an Uber service to send somebody young to go hang out with old people who are by themselves, and insurance pays for this. It's really crazy, and they'll go help and support with tasks around the house and take them to the doctor, and like amazing ideas that are coming from a problem that a lot of people who've retired and their families aren't close, it's solving that problem. The other thing is figuring out the macro benefits of the area. I know there's a lot of organizations here that I've talked to that support entrepreneurs, help give grants and different things to start things up. That's really important. In Florida, it's very pro-business. There's low taxes. Whatever you have, you can kind of double down on that and be able to make that a benefit. And then the last thing was a little bit of luck. And I definitely don't want to say COVID was lucky. It was obviously terrible, very, very unlucky that happened, that all of us had to go through it. But because Florida was open a bit sooner than a lot of markets, it did attract people who wanted an outdoor lifestyle even in the winters, and that helped gather the momentum behind people moving into Miami. So what can you apply here? I think the three most important things is supporting these organizations and identifying more of them that can and will play the long game. I think for everyone in this room, help and support each other. You might not feel like it, but you are the people who are building this tech scene. And that's really, really important to remember and help each other get to that next level. And then keep this focus on a healthy and balanced lifestyle. I think especially post-COVID, as we move into that, it's what people want. You can work for tech companies from anywhere. It's massively, massively amazing that you can do that and you can choose where you live. And I think that's going to help regions like the region here. So again, to everyone in this room, whether you're leading cybersecurity for your team, or maybe you just graduated college, or maybe you're in high school, think about what you can do to help contribute to this tech scene. You can be a leader because of the moment that the tech scene is in. And if you're not already, you can help build this tech scene to take it to where you want. Bottom line, every city and every region will become a tech city or region. You don't need to model after anyone else. Just own your strengths and build. So we'll switch gears again. And I promise to talk about data. That's why I'm here. So you may or may not know, it's one of the biggest economic drivers in the world. The data that companies profit on is data about you and me, except we don't own that data. These companies own it. So I'm going to do a little bit of an overview. Who makes money from it today? Well, right now, all of the apps that are the most popular out there are free. How many out here use the free app today? Yeah, I should see every hand. Okay, good. All right, you're awake. That's great. Anyone know why these apps are free? Who wants to go? I'm going to pick somebody. Come on. Yes. Yes, exactly. You're the product, right? Your data is paying for this product. Whether you're using Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, productivity tools from Google, all of those are free because you are the product. Basically, the entire internet economy at this point in time is built on our data. And most of us have been trained to just give it away for free. Then the big giants, the tech companies like Facebook and Google, data brokers, which we'll talk about a little bit, will make huge profits from that data. How do they collect this data? You probably have some idea about this already, but it can be your location, tracking your phone when you're walking around. It can be who and what you like on social media. It can be who you follow. It can be your search history in the browsers that you use. It can be even your email content. Basically everything that you do online with these free apps is being tracked, and it's generating data for these companies. How does it work? It is complicated. Without going too deep into this, there's kind of a few ways that we can look at it. One is social media companies will build profiles on you. Based on all of these things I mentioned, what you follow, who you like, even which posts you spend more time looking at, all of this is being tracked. And that's going to allow them to target you in different ways for different products. Also, when you're browsing, probably most of you have heard about cookies. These leave crumbs of where you've been on the internet on your computer. And then they can serve different ads, show you different targeted things later on, and sell you more products. They can also collect your info directly, which can be like your phone, email, even your address where you live. Maybe it's in exchange for sending you a quote or on something. Maybe you're looking for a mortgage, or you're looking for some information on a car, and you give this information up. It's very possible that that's just contributing to your data profile. And the most powerful thing is actually combining all of these different data points, which companies are doing more and more of, just to build this profile about who you are. How many of you have talked about something with a friend only to see an ad for that very thing a couple hours later? All right. I'm glad I'm not the only one. Okay, good. So that's kind of creepy, right? A little bit? Yeah, okay. I think this is the one time people realize how much data these companies have on us. The really crazy thing is they're actually not listening to us. That's the really crazy thing. They have so much data on us that they can figure out to feed those ads to us at the right time without listening to the conversations. And how do they do that? Well, there's a lot of things. One is triangulation. So if you and your friend talk about this, and your friends on Instagram or on a social media platform or Facebook, and you're sharing your location, these platforms can see that you've just been next to somebody, and maybe that person just bought a product, and they think, well, maybe they talked about it. Maybe they had a good experience. Maybe they reviewed that product. Let me feed those ads to the person who is just next to them, right? That's kind of crazy. They can do a lot of this stuff. It could just be based on what your friend likes. Maybe they didn't even purchase it. Maybe it's the post that they spend a lot of time looking at because they are planning to take a vacation. So that's really a way that these guys are able to kind of create this effect, which, you know, seems creepier than it is, but it really gives you an idea that there's too much of our data out there. The other things could be, you could have just searched for this a long time ago and forgotten, and it does just come up in a cadence where they might be, oh, vacation time is coming up. Let's show you an ad about a vacation destination. And it happens to be something you Googled, and your friend just talked to you about that as well. And then you can also have a bias of seeing ads that were always there. You notice them differently if you've talked about them. So that sometimes explains it. But the takeaway here is there's so much data about you that they can basically target you that effectively, even without listening to what you've talked about. Who are the people who sell our data? Well, it's probably easy to guess. Google, Facebook. Google made $260 billion last year on ads. Facebook, $115 billion. Even Amazon, which is an e-commerce shopping platform, not a social media site, made $31 billion just by showing ads on products when you're searching. And this is constantly growing. It's becoming bigger and bigger part of especially Amazon's business. That number is probably going to double for next year. But what you probably don't know is that data brokers that nobody really knows from a, let's say, surface level who these companies are, made $260 billion selling our data. So the same amount that Google made from ads, data brokers made as well. So let's listen to John Oliver talk a little bit about these data brokers.
And the thing is, you might not know if your information has been supplied to the government by an app. Even the company behind the app might not know, because it might sell your info to a broker, which then resells it to someone else, which then supplies it to the government. I'll give you an example. A couple of years back, Vice found that the app Muslim Pro, which lets Muslims know when to pray, have been selling user location data to a broker that supplied information to the US government. And while, because the chain is so opaque, it is hard to know what exactly was sold or what the government did with it, the app's users were understandably pretty alarmed.
Feeling disturbed, appalled, but not surprised.
Sarah Mustafa used Muslim Pro. That app has since reportedly severed ties with its data partners.
So intrusive. You know, my conversation with God is not information that the government needs.
Yeah, of course it's not information the government needs. There is a reason the book wasn't called Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, and Homeland Security's on the line as well. Hope that's cool. So to recap here, we've got shady data brokers with virtually no oversight, collecting your data and building profiles that can track who you are, where you are, and what you are most likely to do or buy. You cannot edit this dossier, and others from cops to reporters to your own abusers can find and use this information. It's not a great situation. So, what do we do? Well, it is a bit tricky, especially given the fact that the entire economy of the internet right now is basically built on this practice. All the free stuff that you take for granted online is only free because you are the product. They make money by selling your data. But experts say that there are actually some small steps that you can personally take. You can use web browsers like these to help better protect you against third-party tracking. And if you have an iPhone, you can go to the privacy menu, hit the tracking button, and turn off allow apps to request to track. But this should not be your responsibility. Your privacy should be the default setting here. And there should be legal fixes to this. Other countries have actually tried. The EU passed a law to force sites to disclose cookies and allow you to opt out. But I will say, companies now often cleverly present those options in the most annoying way possible with accept all cookies and easy default, but if you want to reject them, forcing you to go through multiple confusing steps for no clear reason, which is very smart, to be honest. No one is going to put in the work to reject cookies just to sneak a peek at an article titled 5 times Andrew Garfield just was. You'd much rather just hit accept and enjoy your remaining time on this earth gazing at the most emotionally connected Spider-Man to ever splooge the ooze. Now, as for here in the US, individual states have tried to limit data brokers, but advocates say that what is really needed is a comprehensive federal privacy law governing them. This has been proposed for years now, but nothing has happened for a couple of key reasons. First, data brokers' spending on lobbying in 2020 rivaled that of Facebook and Google, but also politicians now famously build their campaigns on data obtained from brokers. Both parties regularly boast about how much they use data. And in fact, just listen to former RNC chair Reince Priebus openly bragging about it.
Everything about almost every potential voter in Georgia is known, and it's not even a joke. They know what beer they drink, what car they drive, how many kids they have, and all that data is used to target every single voter in Georgia.
It's true. Politicians rely on data to be able to target our interests with pinpoint precision. Although, therefore, I do wonder why no presidential candidate has yet targeted me personally with ads promising to fight for the shower of morning chunks that I so richly deserve. I Google it all the time. You would have my vote instantly. But it is very frustrating that the people who could do something about data brokers are so actively incentivized not to. But here is where we may actually be able to help, because, interestingly, the one time that Congress has acted quickly to safeguard people's privacy was in the 1980s, when Robert Bork was nominated to the Supreme Court and a reporter walked into a local video store and asked the manager whether he could have a peek at Bork's video rental history, and he got it. As soon as Congress realized there was nothing stopping anyone from retrieving their video rental records too, they freaked the fuck out. And lo and behold, the Video Privacy Protection Act was passed with quite deliberate speed. So it seems when Congress's own privacy is at risk, they somehow find a way to act. And it also seems like they're not entirely aware just how easy it is for anyone, and I do mean anyone, to get their personal information, which brings me to me. Because in researching this story, we realised there is any number of perfectly legal bits of fuckery that we could engage in. We could, for example, use data brokers to go fishing for members of Congress by creating a demographic group consisting of men aged 45 and up in a 5-mile radius of the US Capitol who had previously visited sites regarding or searched for terms including divorce, massage, hair loss and midlife crisis. We could call that group Congress and Cabernet and then target that list with ads that might attract those men to click, like marriage shouldn't be a prison, or can you vote twice? We could also throw in, do you want to read Ted Cruz erotic fan fiction? Just to see what would happen. And if anyone clicked, we'd be able to harvest even more data from them, which we could then theoretically take steps to de-anonymize. Now, am I saying that we're actually going to do that? Collect all that raw information and store it in, let's say, a manila envelope somewhere? Well, look, I am sorry to disappoint you. We are not going to do that. Why would we when we have already done it? Because all that raw data is currently right in here. And honestly, this whole exercise was fucking creepy. We ran those 3 targeted ads this week in the Capitol Hill area, and to give you a sense of just how many clicks we got, it was very much not 0. Do you want to see more? Because I do. Please, come with me. Because Let's start with the very first hit that we got. It came at 3:35 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon from around the Embassy Row area when a man fitting our demographic description clicked on the Ted Cruz ad, meaning that we now have his IP address and device ID and also know that he did it on an Android phone. So we could now take steps to identify him, just like we could with all these others who clicked on one of our ads in the Capitol Hill area this week, including at least 3 who may have been inside the Capitol building itself. One of whom clicked on the Can You Vote Twice ad, one of whom clicked on the divorce one, and another who clicked on the Ted Cruz erotic fanfiction, which was distressingly popular. And if you're thinking, how on earth is any of this legal? I totally agree with you, it shouldn't be. And if you happen to be a legislator who is feeling a little nervous right now about whether your information is in this envelope and you are terrified about what I might do with it, you might want to channel that worry into making sure that I can't do anything. Anyway, sleep well. That's our show. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week. Good night.
So I love that video. It's a great way to present the problem in a funny way. And I think obviously that specific example is, very extreme, but all of our data, every time we click on an ad, this is happening to us. So what is happening in terms of protecting our data? The good news is that there are changes happening. It's maybe working slowly and the internet is still being powered by our data, but changes are happening. So there's 3 things that we'll look at. 1 is legislation, 2 is technical changes, and the 3rd is consumer preferences, which actually all of us in this room control. So let's take a look at each one of these on its own. So the first is legislation. John mentioned this in the video. You have data privacy focused laws. In Europe, it's GDPR. You have a law in California that recently passed. These are steps forward, which is really great. The problem is that these laws are incomplete. They're not well thought out, and they're usually made by folks who don't understand data or how everything is working around this field anyway. So we really need more to happen in this space, like a national data privacy law here in the US. That would be a big step. And my prediction is that it's actually going to happen. It's going to take some time, but it will happen. We can all play a part in that. We can talk to our elected officials, whether it's locally or nationally, to do something about it and protect the data that should be ours. The other one is technical changes. And this one was surprising to me when I started really researching and understanding what's going on. I thought tech companies would have zero incentive to change how things are done. They rely on advertising and making sure that they can get our data. But what's interesting is some companies rely on it less than others. An example of this is actually Apple. So Apple is more of a hardware company. They want us to buy $1,000 iPhones. They're not really selling us a lot of advertising. And they realize that this could be a competitive advantage versus Facebook, Meta, or Google. So recently, Apple changed how tracking is done, asking users to opt in rather than allowing it automatically. And we'll talk a little bit about what happened when we do that. But it's already put financial pressure on these big tech companies. It also pressured Google to announce that they're going to sunset third-party cookies, which is going to make it harder to track what you do on the internet. That's a major milestone. So things are happening. And I just want to show you how Apple is promoting this because it's a pretty cool ad.
The next sale is a digital treasure trove charming Ellie's private data.
What?
Lot number 1, her emails. The one she's opened and read, wonderfully personal. Let's start at 240, 260, 280. Sold. Lot number 2, Ellie's drugstore purchases. Voila! Priceless data. Do I hear 480? 500. Sold. Her location data. It's not creepy, it's commerce. Do I hear 600? 620? 640? 660? Sold.
Nana?
All her contacts, even sweet Nana. Sold at 740. Her recent transactions. Her browsing history. Her late-night texting habit. Sold. And now the one you've all been waiting for, and I can promise you won't be disappointed.
So I'm not here to say that Apple is doing this right. This is obviously business for them. This is a great differentiator between them and, let's say, what Google might be doing on Android. But it's a cool ad. It shows what is happening with your data every single day. And these, obviously, it's another extreme example, but I think it gets the point across. And I love this ad. This was, when I saw this, I was like, this could be an ad for what we want to build with Usko. So I promised to tell you a little bit about what happened with that change that Apple made. So a reminder, they asked users, and you probably see this if you're an iPhone user, about tracking. When they put that one feature in, 96% of US users opted out when they were given that choice. And that means people do care about privacy when they understand what it is, and apps make it easy for you to opt out and protect your data. And this one change cost Facebook $10 billion in revenue in that quarter, just this one change. And if you remember, if you follow the stock market, it was a crazy drop for Facebook because their ads just became less effective. It was much, much harder for them to be able to target ads. Imagine as more data privacy changes are made, how much it's going to cost the existing players. And are we going to hit a tipping point where the existing model begins to buckle as a result? The third thing that I promised to talk about was consumer preferences. And this is where all of us in this room can make a big difference. Usually, a lot of the people who rely on the existing model will say people don't care about privacy. They just want free apps, whatever, take their data, and no one cares. That's actually starting to change. You have browsers, the two logos up here are DuckDuckGo and Brave, that are actually starting to gain market share. DuckDuckGo has almost 3% of the entire US search market, or about 80 million users. Completely private. Untrackable, basically. So that's something you can try. And the browsing experience is pretty much the same as you would have with some of the other major browsers. Brave, which is actually really cool because it allows you to sell your surfing data. They have about 60 million monthly active users, and they've paid out almost $30 million of BAT token, which is their crypto token to pay people for their surf history. And it's actually the largest crypto app in the entire world. So those are cool ones to try if you haven't tried them. I'm actually curious, does anybody use like a let's say Chrome or Safari browser in here? Do we have anyone using? Okay, we got a few. Okay, cool. That's awesome. Okay, so let's talk about how is data going to be handled in the future. We know what's happening today. What is the future going to look like? Well, to talk about that, I think I need to talk a little bit about Web3 first. How many have heard about Web3? See hands up, quite a few. Maybe Metaverse you've heard of. And Facebook's called Meta now, so I guess most people have heard about that change. So what is Web3? I think the easiest way to understand it, at least for me, is to chat first about Web 1 and Web 2. So Web 1 was the early internet. It was all about reading data. It was very hard to make a web page. It was very hard to contribute to the internet unless you were very technical. It was all about information. You just go and get information. That was it. Web 2 made it very easy to write information on the internet. So think about Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok. Any one of these apps makes it really, really easy for you to contribute information to the internet. That was the real Web 2 change. All of a sudden, all of us became creators if we want to be. It's super, super easy to do that. Web 3 adds a third element, which is ownership. And I'll explain this by going back to Web 2 a little bit. In Web 2, you don't really own anything. The only thing that's ownable are domain names. So if you imagine the internet just came out and you go register a domain, I don't know which one you would register. I'd probably register apple.com. That would probably be worth a lot of money right now. So if you registered apple.com, you are the only one who owns that. Nobody can duplicate it. There's only one apple.com. That's a way of thinking about Web3. What Web3 does is it makes everything essentially a domain. Because of blockchain, any digital asset can become ownable. You maybe have heard of or own cryptocurrencies. Anybody into crypto here? It's okay. Yeah, maybe a few. Okay, we'll get through this winter. Don't worry. It's going to be good again. NFTs. Anybody own an NFT? Oh, only one? Okay, cool. I have a moonbird. Nice. Okay, good stuff. So Web3 provides these opportunities for ownership. Those are the first couple of use cases, but you can own anything digital, including your data in this Web3 world. So really excited to talk more about that. How is data going to be handled in the future? Well, these are tweets by Jake Bruckman. He's the founder of CoinFund. They're one of the top crypto and Web3 investors in the entire world. And of course, he moved to Miami recently, like all of these guys did. And in these tweets, he talks about how most of the data about us out there today is not owned by us. It's owned by the big tech companies. There are a few exceptions. And if you imagine what on your phone you truly own, there's really two things. Your contacts, that's probably not owned by anybody. You can take that with you. And your photos. Those are two things that you own. He calls these things primary data. All of the rest of the data about us, say the things you post on Facebook or your connections with your friends on TikTok or Snapchat, all of those things are owned by those companies. If you leave that platform, all of your friendships disappear. There's no information about those outside of those platforms. And what Jake's point is, which I agree with, is in the future, you're going to start owning those. You might own your social graph. You might own your friendships. You might own all of these things so that if you switch social media apps, all of those things are in your control. And there's a base layer that people can build apps on top of. And in Web3, you would own that base level data and you would choose when people have access to it. If you give access to an advertiser, they would pay you for it. It's a very different model in terms of how that data ownership can work. So now that we talked a bit about Web3, I do want to make this practical so you can take some stuff away. And I want to give you some examples of ways you can take back control of your data. So the first one that we're going to look at, and John mentioned this in the video as well, is turning off tracking. So I'm sorry for the Android users. I'm going to demo with an iOS device. This does work for Android actually as well. But I want everybody to take out your phones. I'm probably the only speaker who's like, look at your phone. That's good. Okay. And go to settings. If you have an iPhone, I'm going to do it too. Hit settings. Then go to privacy and choose tracking. And here, what you're going to see is a list of apps that requested permission to track you, even when you're not using that app. So these are apps that are tracking you when you're outside of that app. In my opinion, no app should be doing that. I don't see what the benefit for you would be from that. It's a huge benefit for Facebook because they can see what you do in Amazon or they can see what you do on other social media platforms. So if you don't want them to do this, you can turn that toggle up at the top and just put it to never. I think that's the right option here. Apps to request. Perfect. The next thing at the top of your privacy menu, you'll see location services. Did everybody find that, by the way? Did you find the tracking? Yeah? Okay, cool. If you hit location services up at the top, this is going to give you another list of apps. These are all apps that have requested to use your location at some point. As you scroll down this list, what I would like to see is never instead of always. Anybody see always on there? It's okay, raise your hand. Are there a few? Anybody? Oh, okay. So this means these apps can always follow you around, whether or not you're in the app. You might need this for some app that needs your location, but I would change all of those to either while using, which means that that app can only get your location while you're inside that app, or never, which means they can never get it. And the reason this is important is when I looked at this 3 nights ago when I was practicing, I went all the way through my list and I found 3 old apps that I haven't opened probably in 4 or 5 years that were tracking my location at all times. So these companies have had my location everywhere where I've gone. They've been able to sell that, whether or not I've opened it. That's not cool. So that's something very easy that you can make a change for. The next thing that you can do is learn what data these big companies have. Because of these regulations that I mentioned, it's actually now possible to find out what does Facebook know about me? What does Google know about me? What does Amazon know about me? On purpose, they make this very difficult, cumbersome, and the UI, the user experience, is terrible because they don't want you doing this. But you can do this. We actually just put a blog on our Urska blog that explains how you can do it for each one of these platforms. But I want to give you guys one example so you can see how this works and just share, like when I did this for all of mine, Facebook has a record of every post that I've ever liked since I was in college. That was more than a few years ago. I'll put that out there. That's a lot of posts. Every single one is logged. Amazon has every recording of me speaking to my Alexa, over 1 gigabyte worth of audio, including my dog barking at Alexa, is recorded and has been parsed for information that they could sell products to me. So What's really great is you can actually delete most of this data and it doesn't impact your account. You can still keep your account open. It just makes it harder for them to track you. So if you want to give this a try, you should be able to take a picture of this QR code. I don't know if anybody wants to try that. And I will share the deck with everyone at the end so you can do it too. This is for anyone who's an Amazon shopper. So this will bring you directly to Amazon's Request My Data page. And if you've had an Alexa device, for example, you can pick from this drop-down Alexa and Echo devices. You're going to get a link in your email where you can see and listen to the audio that they have on you. And you might also decide, maybe I don't want this on Amazon servers, and you can go and delete that. How many of you out there have said something on social media that you later regret? For this, I hope I see a few hands. No one? Okay, there's one. Okay. You don't have to share what it is. Just raise your hand. There's only one person who's done that. Okay, two? All right, great. So what you can do also is remove a lot of the data that you've created. So the social media stuff that you put out there is data that you create and you willingly put out there. At the time, it might feel great. Maybe you want to do it. But we actually have a tool in our privacy suite called Redact, which is at redact.dev, which will allow you to see what content you've put out there across 40 different social media platforms. And you could actually search by a specific key term. So let's say that I'll just take that John Oliver example. You saw the John Oliver thing, you posted something about it. You could go on the Redact app and search for every time you mention John Oliver across everything, including DMs on platforms like Discord, and be able to delete those. It's very powerful. This is completely free, by the way, and it's a way that you can manage what data is out there. Some people choose to delete all of the data that they created on certain platforms. You can even schedule it to do it at certain times if you want to say some things that are maybe a little out there, and then make sure that they're not there when you're applying for your next job. We have over 200,000 downloads on this tool and 50 million data points redacted. So it's a free tool you can just check out and use if you want to try it. We talked about new browsers. There are a few people already using it, which is great. This is really just all about try it, see what it is, see how it is to actually protect your privacy, or use something like Brave and actually get paid. You're not going to make a lot of money, just your browser history data, but it's part of being kind of the consumers that push preferences to the direction where we all hope that it's going to go. And then the last thing is really the Web3 promise, which is moving over to owning your data. Like we saw with Brave, some browsers are already offering payment for data. What we're building is we want to build a platform that will compensate you for any data that you want to share after giving you true ownership of it. So that's ultimately what we're building. And now that you understand a bit more about where and how your data is used, it's maybe easier to see why I'm so passionate about building an entire company around giving users control of their data and being able to monetize that. So I'll just quickly let you know what we're building. So this is a tool that's going to allow you to collect your data from all of these different data sources and be able to analyze, manage, and monetize it. What's really important is you get ownership when you do this. And our first use case is Amazon data. How many actually shop on Amazon here? I'm just curious. Most? How many know exactly what you're buying on Amazon every single month? Okay, there's a few. Okay, so a big problem, at least for me and a lot of people I've spoken to, is you're going to get one charge on Amazon at the end of the month or every time you place an order on your credit card. You don't really know what you're doing. You might be buying groceries with that, electronics. It could be a lot of different things. So what we wanted to do is give more visibility to users around that. Usko as a name comes from Finnish, where I'm from, and it means trust, belief, and confidence. Everything we do with your data is completely in your control and 100% transparent. So let's take a really quick look at how this works. So what you would do is connect your Amazon account. We don't see your login or your password. And we're going to give you these analytics around where you spend your money. So rather than just a charge from Amazon at the end of the month, you can drill down by category, by product, get an idea of where you're spending that money. What we're building out next is messaging, so that brands will actually be able to, with your permission, send you an offer based on what you purchase. They will never know who you are or have any way to contact you outside of an anonymous direct message inside our platform. So in this example, a person had bought a camera on Amazon, and someone who makes a lens for that camera paid money to send that person a message specifically about a product that they bought. And then you're going to have a virtual wallet where you can add up your earnings of what you get paid. We're going to use a token for this, which will be built on Ethereum. The reason for this is we want early adopters of the platform to grow with us. And if we do well, the token's probably going to be worth more over time. And we can also start paying people from day one for sharing their data, even when we don't have a lot of advertisers on our platform. And like I mentioned, security and privacy is our core. There's no way for us to see any of this data. It's actually stored locally on your device. So if you are worried about that, there's basically zero way for us to connect. It's on the hard drive of your phone. So that makes it very secure and private, and makes sure that even if we wanted to try to get access to your data, we can't. And the only way we can match an advertiser to your data is if you opt in, and that advertiser would only know a mobile ID and be able to send you a message, not knowing who you are or any of the other products that you might have purchased. Our future expansion is to add a lot of other platforms where you can take this purchase data and eventually add your social media, be able to add your car lease or your mortgage, be able to add your health data, whatever data that you wanted to analyze and own, and you could opt into monetizing this data on your own terms if you wanted to at certain times. An example could be your car lease could be ending, and you're like, I want to get offers that I'm pre-approved for a car from 3 different brands. Never need to talk to a dealership. They would know all of your information without knowing who you are and be able to send you an offer that's completely anonymous and is pre-approved that you could act on. And they would pay you money to do that. So, what are the takeaways from this talk? I hope there's a few things that you'll take away from today. One, coming back to the beginning of my journey, just like racing, my path has been not a straight path. A lot of twists and turns, a few jumps as well. And what I did along the way is really tried to lean into my passions, and that reinforced my attributes and have led me from sports to education and now to data. You can follow your passions too and take your own path. We also talked about how all regions are going to be tech hubs. It's about putting in the work, supporting each other, and celebrating what makes your region unique. Like Miami, Western Maryland will continue growing and becoming more tech-focused, and you are all the leaders that are going to make that happen. Finally, when it comes to data, remember, it should be yours, and there's a lot you can do to control and safeguard it. Do you trust the companies that have your data today to safeguard it, or is it time to start taking that control into your own hands? Things are shifting, as you saw, the regulatory landscape, technical changes, and this whole Web3 transition. And I think you're going to see a lot more projects like Usko, where you can benefit from your data in a secure way while you have complete control of it. Something I know really well is that in the end, it's going to be about fairness and privacy of our data, and that's what's going to lay down a foundation for trust. I hope that each one of you in the audience today will join me in this movement as we work together to take back control of our data, and ultimately, as a result, we're going to build a better internet. Thank you so much. And if you'd like, you can take your phone out, take a picture of this one, and you'll actually get a copy of the deck. It's just through Google Slides. You'll also find my email. My name is connected to my LinkedIn page. Please give me a follow. I look forward to chatting with you.